as journalists, we've got this huge problem with what was, and I'm going to point it out here, this is Scott Morrison's misinformation and disinformation censorship bill.
I know.
And then it became Albanese. So at the very least, I would like to see Peter Dutton come out and say, I renounce what was written when we were in leadership, because he has to distance himself from this bill. It's a shocking piece of legislation. It effectively ends the concept
the problem with Liberal leaders like Dutton, who I think is probably a decent, on most issues, a decent guy and stands for mostly. I dare say he's probably got. I remember following him for years. He seemed to be good. His worldview, his morals seemed to. But then what happens when they get into leadership, especially when they become Prime Minister, and I think Tony Abbott's a great example of it, they become the biggest cowards and they never actually stand up for what they believe. They never stand up for their conservative or freedom-focused small government positions, and they end up cowering to these, especially when, like you said, it came from their side originally, and a lot of people are forgetting that, this whole misinformation thing. And I did see a couple of Liberals, I think, speak out. I read something quickly about it, but they're only speaking out now because suddenly Albo's picked up their piece of power, and that's what it is. That's why there's bipartisanship with Liberal and Labor on this one, because they're exempting government, they're exempting themselves to grab more power, because all that is creating a law that really, the law is that they can lie, but if they deem what you're saying as a lie, they can stop you.
Well, as we say, government is the largest source of misinformation and disinformation on earth, and we saw plenty of that during COVID. But this bill, I mean, even if we as independent organisations were able to get ourselves exemptions, it effectively ends the concept of the free press in this country, while simultaneously robbing the Australian people of their right to freedom of political communication. Does this bill threaten the entire premise upon which this country is based, which is to be a free and open society?
I can't see it any other way. I'd like to see someone make the argument the other way. I haven't seen one that makes any sense.
Well, I think
absolutely.
You made a good point there a second ago when you talked about the politicians, particularly the Liberals, being frightened and cowards when they're in office, and that's because they're frightened of the press. So we have this strange scenario where our politicians are frightened of the press, the press are frightened of the politicians, and so we have two levels of cowards that are both running the show, and that is leading to genuinely terrible politics. Is that why they're so frightened of independent press like you, because you're not actually afraid of either the media or the politicians?
Because you're not controllable, because you're not part of their little clique. So, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's the kind of relationship they have, and we saw that again through COVID. And we've seen it for so long. So, of course, here they're taking care of each other. And who's the biggest threat to both of those? Well, us and freedom of speech. Anyone who's willing to call them out. Now, so the idea of freedom of speech is a threat to them, so that's why they're going after that, and getting every individual person who calls them out, target them, silence them, remove their platform, and then us, as in we're doing that, but we just have larger platforms to do it with.